Party people! Well, welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week I am joined by Sara Alfageeh for a game of Space Between Stars by Federici Valetti. Space Between Stars is a GM-less sci-fi role-playing game about an interstellar crew growing and learning and dealing with their internal issues as they navigate an unstable universe one job at a time. Also, there are space whales. The game builds on classic sci-fi tropes and properties like Star Wars and The Expanse with a really, really clever dice system that is super fun and engaging and, tactical in all the ways that, I want a game to be tactical and cool and fast, and I can't wait for you to hear it. There's I think, a good 6-7 minutes of Sara and I just screaming about the game, and I really think that it's awesome. I think it's cool as hell. This is one of my favorite sci-fi games I've played in a very, very long time. And I think you're really going to dig it. I think you should check it out. You can find more information about Space Between Stars at viditiavaletti.itch.io, or you can check the show notes for more information. Sara is the creative director behind One More Multiverse, the platform to make, play, share, and stream your next tabletop adventure. One More Multiverse is an absolutely incredible-looking virtual tabletop with really in-depth and beautiful map-making tools, and it really just... I haven't been this excited about a virtual tabletop in a very, very long time. It looks amazingly cool, and I really think that you should just go to the website and check it out, or join their Discord where they run games. They're in a closed beta right now. I think that you should go to their Discord. I think you should try it out for yourself. I think you should play some games. I think you should watch some games at twitch.tv/playmultiverse and get a picture of just this entire cool tabletop that they're building. It's really exciting, and I think it's going to do really, really cool things for playing games online. I know I've got some plans in my back pocket for it when it's finally available. I'm really excited about it, and I think you should check it out. You can find One More Multiverse online at playmultiverse.com. You can also check the show notes for more information, and you can find Sara on Twitter at Sara Alfageeh. Two quick things before we dive in. One, a special thank you to Gavin Moore, our newest backer on Patreon. Thank you for supporting not just the show, but all of the podcasts that I create, the games that I design, all of the cool stuff that I do. Patreon backers get early access to episodes and games and bonus materials and all kinds of cool, interesting things. So if you enjoy any of the stuff that I create, you should go to patreon.com/JeffStormer. Check it out, support all of it for as little as $1 a month. And secondly, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Tabletop Potluck.
Hi, we're Tabletop Potluck, an actual play podcast created to help diversify the world of mainstream tabletop role-playing games.
And make tasty recipes.
And help you find your new favorite RPG system.
And to have fun.
So check it out.
Now on all podcast directories.
Hey, come sit at our table.
And with all that said, let's go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week, I could not be more excited to be sitting down with Sara Alfageeh. Sara, thank you so much for coming on Party of One.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I've been reading through the game that we're playing today, and I'm excited to talk to you about what you've got going on. I'm excited to play the game, but before we dive into anything, why don't you take a moment to let our lovely listeners at home know about anything you've got going on that you might want them to know about?
Hello, Party of One listeners. My name is Sara Alfageeh. I'm the creative director and co-founder of One More Multiverse. That is the platform making it as easy as possible to play, share, and stream your next tabletop role-playing adventure. We are currently in closed beta right now with a really thriving Discord community, discord.gg/multiverse. And we are developing all the tools to make your favorite new virtual tabletop. And yeah, that has been what's been keeping me busy for the past 2 years or so.
I could not be more excited for One More Multiverse. I've been following the updates for a very, very long time, and everything in it just looks... It looks like it is going to be what I've wanted from a virtual tabletop for an extremely long time, and so I am giddy with excitement, waiting for it to be available so that I can play around with it and mess with it. I've already got very big plans in my back pocket for when I can go around and get my grubby fingers on things.
Please do come get your grubby fingers on it. Again, we're in closed beta right now, and we have a games calendar available to everybody that we update month to month. We are inviting people to come GM with us, to come play with us at this time. And if you want to take a peek at what One More Multiverse looks like right now, you can check out twitch.tv/playmultiverse, where we are currently running an actual play campaign, a D&D game called The Shepherd's Trial. And we also have a long-running West Marches campaign for everybody in our Discord where we play Blades in the Dark. I'm also personally one of the GMs on that games calendar. So if you want to come play with me specifically, I would love to have you.
I'm gonna have to find some time and make this happen because like I'm really excited. It looks really freaking cool. I'm gonna limit my gushing to this because otherwise I'll be gushing about this for a very, very long time.
Thank you.
But that said, we are here to play a game today, and I could not be more excited. We are playing Space Between Stars, an interstellar RPG about who you are and where you're going by our good friend Vittia Valetti. I am beyond excited. This is a very, very cool game. It is inspired by very classic sort of big sci-fi ideas like Star Wars and Mass Effect and The Expanse, and it is the way that it plays, like so much of it is just cool, interesting world building that we're going to be doing, and then we're gonna play some space dirtbags and go on a job, and it's all of the things that I love in big heart sci-fi adventures.
I really love that. My earliest memories is watching, and this is gonna tell everybody how old I am, but I was watching the Star Wars Episode 1 and looking at Queen Amidala of the Naboo, and all I could think was like, dang, she's so fucking cool, and all I want to do is run around and have space adventures. And Mass Effect is the love of my life. I just finished up The Expanse season 5, so I'm space all day. I'm
excited. This is perfect. This is good. So the way that the game works is we have some world building details to flesh out, and then we will make our interstellar crew. We'll build our ship and our crew members, and then we will go on a little bit of a job. Are you ready to dive in and answer some world building questions?
Am I ever?
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is fill out our world state. The world state is defined, as so much sci-fi is, by a galactic superpower and a rebellion. Stop me if you've heard those dynamics before. So the way this is going to work is I have a deck of cards with the jokers removed. So I'm going to flip a card, and I am going to, and there are 3 questions for us to start, but we're going to define what the galactic superpower is, the state of the rebellion, and how the war between these two forces has been going. And then our story is going to be kind of happening in the background of that.
Okay.
So I will flip the first card, and we will talk a little bit about how this is good. Our galactic superpower is called the Magistrate. It is an authoritarian council. The way that this works for listeners is there are 4 results on this table based on the suits of a playing card deck. I drew the 6 of hearts, and the hearts result is Magistrate, Authoritarian Council. I feel like that's a good villainous thing to buck against, is that sort of like,
I do love me an authoritarian council. So we are naming them and defining their rule.
Yeah.
Interesting. So these are our potential big baddies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This is the empire looming in the background. And I get the vibe, the words authoritarian council, especially compared to like religious enforcement, corporate control, or military dictatorship. I get big bureaucracy vibes, and that is always the thing that I want to buck against.
It gives me this, very, very fanciful notions of democracy that don't actually like filter out into reality. Like it's a lot of things written down, and then how the actual political game is played feels very different.
Yeah, it's appropriate that you mentioned Star Wars Episode 1, because I like the vibe I get.
That's all of it.
Like, this is like the Senate from the Star Wars prequels, where it is all pomp and circumstance, and somebody can come up and be like, hey, there's a robot army trying to murder me, and they're like, well, we'll table this and have a discussion about it.
Yeah. And especially when we're talking about, galactic superpower, we're talking about the far reaches of space. It feels very disconnected from probably the reality of like all these different planets and all these different like lived experiences throughout the galaxy. So this feels to me like a very small concentration of power that is quite out of the loop. But we need a name.
Can we call them the Cosmic Consortium?
Consortium. I do like consortium. Cosmic Consortium.
Or the Consortium for short. But I feel like
the
that
consortium.
that feels so puffed shirt that feels like a good, that feels like how you would describe like it feels very high-minded of a sense of like, this is a consortium. Like we are debating, we are bringing matters to bear. There's an order of debate. Like it feels very it feels very inaccessible, right? Like as a concept, it feels very like out of reach.
It feels like you could never actually bring any of your concerns, any of your treatises to these actual people. You have no idea who's behind the consortium. Yeah. It's just an entity. Yeah. I like this.
I love it. I love it a lot. All right. So we've also got our rebellion. The rebellion is currently, I'm going to flip our card. I've drawn the 7 of spades. Our rebellion is currently a secret rebellion. It is the dagger.
A secret rebellion. You know what's interesting though? When you said I drew the 7 of spades, I kind of just liked how that sounded.
The 7 of spades?
As the name of a secret rebellion. I kind of love that, to be honest.
That's a good rebellion name. That's a really good rebellion name is the thing. And I kind of like the 7 of spades. I almost like that it is like the backstory that immediately pops into my head is that this is like 7 different
like factions.
Yeah, like organizations that have formed this kind of like alliance, and it's a mix of like crime families and like political action movements, and it's people that really don't have a ton of like, their ideals are not at all aligned, but it's hey, if the only way that any of us are going to make a difference in a world in which everything is so heavily monitored and like is if we all kind of scratch each other's backs.
I do love the enemy of my enemy is my friend, especially as we're talking about like these are all these different like these disparate factions and groups, and everyone kind of has their own goals and ideals. Some of it lines up, some of it doesn't, but the end goal is the same, and it's going against the consortium. I'm all in for that. I do love that.
I do too. I really do. Okay, so these 2 factions are at war, and the war's current state, define what happened and is happening. Oh, okay, cool, good.
What we got?
The queen of clubs. So the war has ended in a catastrophic event, and no one is happy.
Oh, okay. This sounds. I feel like we definitely built ourselves up to this point. That's great.
That feels good. That feels really good.
Oh, that's really, I'm actually quite excited about that because I was like, I don't know if I want to get into like war stories right now. So I do love that we're dealing with this very messy aftermath. Yeah. This is giving me kind of, I guess, do you know the comic book series Saga? Feels a bit like that. I do love how messy that space opera is. I love
that it, what I love about that, the visual that I get is that like, the consortium exists but is effectively powerless, and the 7 of spades are all still like those relationships are still in place, but like the we're all after different things they've all kind of gone their own separate ways, and so there's it's just this sense of like, the vibe I get is that there were so many factions and now no one is in control, and now it's kind of every person for themselves.
And I would love this idea of like perhaps this like newer generation, they have these very romantic ideas of what the 7 of spades used to be. They have this very far-fetched kind of story they tell each other of like what it was like to go up against the consortium, I love that. So yeah, I'm very into that.
All right. And so now we are going to build out some setting details. So what's going to happen is I'm going to draw a card. On an odd number, we're going to answer a question about aliens. On an even number, we're going to answer a question about space. And if I draw a face card, we're going to answer a question about space whales and fish. The game makes a very specific point and says, you may have noticed that we have questions about space whales, and you're wondering if you have to include them. As the designer, Viditya emphasizes that, yes, we do. We have to get fun with them and get weird with them. And frankly, that is the kind of game design decision that I want to see more of. I am happy and I'm excited to learn more about space whales.
With every question, I just got I sat up straighter and straighter in my chair. I'm like, aliens, space, whales, let's go.
All right. So I have drawn the 2 of diamonds. So our first question is it is an even, so it's a question about space, and it is diamonds. So what hazards does space have that have been discovered?
Ooh, okay. So we have all these far-reaching groups all across the galaxy. So we got probably, I feel like every corner of space has been reached by somebody at this point. I
have a thought. I think a lot about how space is like big, and how like space is like impossibly big. And what maybe pops into my head, what's interesting to me, and the idea of like space travel between planets, the whole idea of like light speed travel. What if that was like the vibe that I get is very like to travel in light space is very 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Where it just is like a reality bending experience that is itself incredibly like, and you know, like so many kids who grew up on Star Wars, I always had the question of like, what if 2 ships pass each other? Like if you're going light speed, like what happens? So that idea that to get from place to place is like, we have the technology, but we have not made it easy. And
are you saying there's space traffic?
I almost picture the idea of like to go between places is to be like it is scary. Like it is scary to travel through like deep space because you have to enter into like this weird conceptual light speed space that like is just creepy and weird and dangerous in its own kind of way.
Bouncing off of that, I think maybe the space itself is this hazard. And it's kind of like with all medical developments, we're still learning what's happening to people who very regularly travel through space at this light speed. Kind of taking a leaf out of The Expanse here, where you are coming across people of all these different, I wouldn't say they're deformities, but almost mutations happening.
I love that.
And we're seeing a facet of humanity, a kind of like a sped up evolution in a way that we don't fully understand. And people are still piecing it together. And perhaps some of the factions are more aware of it than others.
I love
so
that.
As we're traveling space and we're going through it, we're realizing what space itself is doing to us.
I love that. And the thing that I pull from hearing that's really cool to me is the way that like is the language stuff from Arrival, where it like the language changes your perception of time, and that idea of like it can be like oh, I've suddenly grown a third arm, or it can be just like I don't think about time in the way that like in the I now perceive time in a different way, and so it becomes almost with this sort of younger generation that is trying to like sort of come back together. It creates this challenge of how do we form a space where all of these people are kind of welcome, and that's sort of beautiful to me.
Yeah, I really love that.
All right.
The hazard is space.
Our next question is the 7 of clubs. So it is about aliens. What relics of alien civilizations do we have available to us?
I'm always so torn up because on one hand, I do love a good human-centric space universe. And then on the other hand, I'm a sucker for like ruins lost to time. Could they tell us how we should have been living this whole time? I don't know.
What if it's both? What if the relics are like old I think about like the idea of like old Terran stuff is like just out there, and like it has been, we're in the aftermath of this messy war, and like I kind of picture that the old world is like the relics that is available to us is like I a little bit of that kind of like really good like space miner energy, and that kind of like I love a good the original trilogy of Star Wars where everything looks dirty and old, and it's that sense of like we just don't have the ability to make this stuff anymore, so the relics is just sort of like every piece of tech is 2 generations old, because that's when we lost the ability to make a lot of this stuff.
Oh, I love that. So I love this vision of space where it feels like we're taking a step backwards, actually, not a step forwards. We're building off of what previous civilizations have done. It's this very hermit crab feeling around space, a very scrappy look to it. I really do love that. So it's like perhaps we don't fully understand some of these, carved out buildings, these intricate lines in the rocks and in the plateaus around us, and maybe occasionally we trigger something, but I really do love that. I love not having all the answers here, especially if we're talking about we've reached the far ends of space, we've seen it all. Does it mean we understand it? Absolutely not
even a little bit. I gotta answer. I know that we didn't draw a face card, but I gotta answer a whale question. We gotta answer a whale question. It's too juicy. It's right there. So I'm just going to draw, in whatever suit we pull, we're going to answer a whale question. So I've drawn the 10 of Hearts, which is, what are the nature of the space whales in relation to civilization? Like in relation to the people in this space, how do space whales relate to that? Are they common? Are they a common occurrence? Are they weird and mythical? Like how do we picture this element that absolutely has to be in this world that we're building?
I love this idea of perhaps they are even part of the everyday backdrop. Like you wake up in the morning, you're going to see the occasional space whale like crossing the horizon and stuff. And to some people, maybe it's part of this sacred tradition. You honor them, you praise them, you work really hard to make sure that their natural environment suits them first. And then other people who just kind of see them as cattle. Kind of see them as maybe you hitch your own, like, I wonder how big they are actually. Before I get into it, how big are we thinking the space whales are?
I picture colossally huge.
I do too.
Okay.
I think they are these kind of misunderstood. We hope they're gentle giants. We have nothing to prove that they are anything but gentle. A little bit worry of the day that they decide to not be gentle giants, but it's a coexistence thing.
Yeah, the thing that I get from that, which I really love, is the idea that like it's that economies of scale thing, or that idea that like they are so gigantic, that a lot of times it is clear to people that haven't been in close proximity that like we simply do not exist to a space whale in the same way that microscopic organisms do not are just not are not perceived by us. Like it's just like they're so big that it's just like at most we are seen as like a gnat floating in the wind.
I love this idea of this absolutely mind-breaking, majestic, like view of this other realm of biology. Like it's you can't really understand. It's kind of like how we think of the sun. It's like you get it in theory, but no one. If you sit there and really think hard about it, you're like, oh my God, how am I alive right now?
Yeah, I can't comprehend it.
Yeah, and on the other side, it's like there will be rent specials if the space whale is always going to be covering your view. It's just like part of the everyday life.
I love it. So much. Okay, so we've got our world. Now it's time to build out our crew members. We have 4 pre-generated character sheets. So we are going to choose between one of our 4 backgrounds. Those 4 backgrounds are the experienced veteran, the painful past, the wandering spirit, and the strong-willed hero, or the strong-willed. Do you have a preference over which of these 4 backgrounds is most evocative to you?
Trying to think of like our world a bit. This is going to be our protagonist, our player character.
Yeah. We're each gonna build one of these characters, and then we've got some GM-less storytelling to dig into.
It seems like with the backdrop of a war that's ended, or actually some people might even say it hasn't ended yet. It's just been messy all the way through. I do want a strong-willed figure to emerge forward among all of that nuance and messy gray history.
And I along the same lines, I love the idea of there being an experienced veteran, even more so than the painful past. The idea of the person that like the idea of that strong-willed person. I love the idea of an experienced veteran more than a painful past, of the person that's like I saw how it went down, like I saw more of the realities of it, but I recognize that like, but I'm still like, I still have that fundamental belief that we can do better and we can build off of that, and that forms a really nice like bond between our 2 characters.
I really love that. Someone who's kind of has like a step towards the future and someone who's just stepped out of the past. Love it.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let me pull up the book, and so we'll run through how to build these characters. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to map out our loyalties on the character sheet, which for you is on page 3 of the quick start sheets. And mine is on page 1. So on our character sheets, we have loyalties. Loyalties are the principles and the things that we fundamentally believe in when we are building our dice pools in play. Like we are going to add dice to our pools if we act according to our loyalties, according to the things that we believe. We each have 2 I will statements that have like a question to kind of lead us in our answer. So we can kind of just go back and forth and kind of read it and then fill in a little bit of an answer based on what we think. My first question is, what principles do you uphold?
Is this for me or for you?
This is for my experienced veteran, and I'm trying to think, what principle do I uphold? I will not honor the broken allegiances of the past.
That's real good.
That's my principle. The 7 of Spades was a lovely idea at the time, but it was a bunch of people that had knives pointed at each other, and I saw how that went down, and I have no particular loyalty to that, and so I refuse to. I kind of buck against the idea of doing things out of a sense of this is how the 7 of Spades did them, because we have a chance to build something better.
If you have the Spacebook open, do you mind actually reading to me the description for strong-willed one more time?
Yes, absolutely. Strong-willed. A strong-willed character has a strong idea of what they believe in, their experiences under their belt, and that guide their actions to their best self, and are in turn able to shrug off the harshness of life. Play a strong-willed character if you wish to seriously think about how your character would act in situations. Playing towards your loyalty will grant dice to a dice pool, while playing against the loyalty will cause you grief and have you doubt yourself. While gaining grief can be worrisome, it also allows you to grow and foster as you reestablish your loyalties.
Okay, so this works out. So for me, my first question under the loyalties is an I will question, saying, how do you show pride in your profession? So how do you show pride in your profession? And I am starting to see this character kind of as your classic space captain or space pilot, perhaps more specifically. So this is someone who is really caring for every aspect of their ship, like it is a living creature, like it is a member of the crew, just as the people that inhabit it on the inside. Their ship is their name. It is their, I would even extend it to being like kind of a family symbol as well. This is something passed on from generation to generation, kind of remembering the detail of the hunkering space caravan sort of vibe, where you're just taking scraps of what's been built before you and adding adding your own details to it. So for this is I will care for the environment around me as if it is a member of my crew. So I will care for my ship like it is a member of my own family.
I love it. I love it a lot. So my other question is, what will you do for peace? And I've written down, I will get my hands dirty so no one else has to. Someone has to step into this role as I see it. Like I grew up, you know, even if I don't respect the sort of alliances of the Seven of Spades, like I watched the Seven of Spades struggle in the shadow and in secret. And I saw that like there were messy things that had to happen. And I see this new generation. I see you, I see your character. I believe there is a chance for this new generation to build something better. And I don't want these messy things to fall onto their hands. I want them to have the freedom to build that better future. And so if that means that I've got to do those messy jobs, like I'm fine with that.
Oh, damn. I really love those tropes. I love those kind of characters.
I do too.
For me, it reminds me of like Amos from The Expanse. I fucking love Amos. It's just like, you can't handle this. I can. Let me shoulder this burden. Love it. And on my end, my second question is, what will you do for peace? I think it's this fundamental understanding that you have to be part of it. Like this isn't something just to opt out on. I think there's a lot of disillusionment right now. There's a lot of this feeling like what is happening around us is so out of our control. This idea of the consortium is so beyond our comprehension as everyday people. You don't even know where to begin when you're dealing with the powers that be. And just recognizing that there is a place for you. There are actions that you can take. And it starts with this, it starts with the one-on-one interactions, just, you know, between space crew, between families, between the separate factions. Like that's how you build up to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. So now we're gonna map out our hindrances. Hindrances are what set your character back. They represent moments where your character faces their fears, challenging themselves, and possibly overcoming their shadows. These have questions that are tied to I have statements, and these are the sources of difficulty and drama for us. My first question is, who or what have you betrayed? I think I have turned my back on my crew.
Damn.
I have turned my back on my old criminal crew. I was part of a heist team. It was one of the branches of the Seven of Spades was like a heist outfit, was like a criminal like theft operation. And I abandoned that crew. Like I left them. I something happened that like pushed me out. I don't know what it is, but I walked away and I never looked back. And that failure to stick together, that I there's a part of me that sees me as no better than anybody else in the Seven of Spades, that when things started to break down, turned their back on everyone and kind of went in for themselves. So that's a thing that weighs on me.
Dang. For my question, I have as well, who or what have you betrayed? And thinking back to how I'm talking about this, my ship is this kind of like relic passed from generation to generation, and I'm expected to do the same. And I imagine that I stole this ship. I stole this ship from my kin, from my family, and I am putting it in harm's way, the way that I wouldn't have done to another fellow family member. Kind of like going forward on this, some people might consider delusional mission. This idea that I could, reunite the factions, the Seven of Spades, that I could go against the consortium like people have done in the past. This is an ultimate betrayal to the people who raised me.
I love that. That's fantastic. Oh, that's very good. My other question is, what are you addicted to? I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna take this question in a direction and say I'm addicted to direct action. And maybe that's also part of why I turned my back on my old crew, was that they were like tied to like the subterfuge, and like they're just part of me is like I don't want to like play around. Like I don't like I have no patience. I have no desire to if we can do the thing. If there's a messy option that just is us doing the thing, like that's where my heart goes immediately. I don't have a patience for any sort of procedure.
So bureaucracy, not your forte.
Not at all.
Yes. Oh, that's very interesting. I can see where there has definitely been a lot of friction as you've navigated the different factions. I have similar question. What are you addicted to? Which I'm a little stumped on right now. Cause I feel like I think I might be focusing a bit too much on the word addicted. It's like what could be like a synonym that gets us across?
I have a thought hearing about your character that feels very, very interesting.
I'm all ears.
What if it's something like idealism? This idea of like, you know, you are hooked into that. You are so hooked into this idea of like, because I think there's the cynical way to take that, which is not what would interest me. But the idea of like, you believe in the best of the seven of spades to a point where you overlook like the problems with it.
Yeah, that feels right. That really does feel right. It is a naive idealism. It is, seeing your character with their experiences. It's an unwillingness to accept that this could go wrong in a way that it's like, this is the only thing holding them together. When I think about my character and with this question, what are you addicted to? I really do love the idea that it is this desperate need for their principles, for their beliefs to actually come true. It's like this, if you just believe it, it'll happen. It is very naive. It is a little bit, it's desperate in a way. They've put so much on the line, like they can't go back home empty-handed. Like that it's that kind of feeling, especially that you see in younger people, where whatever they've set their mind to becomes their whole world. Like this would be a loss of identity as well. Like you've shaped your whole worldview around this kind of these principles, around this mission. And what are you without them? And I think that's why like a veteran character would be really healthy for them as well. Because it's this vision of like, even when things go wrong, it's going to be okay. Yeah. It's this idea of like, things went real bad and we're still here. Yeah. I love that. So we also have, we have one other thing to fill out, but I actually think it would be more interesting for us to fill it out as we go. We have abilities, which are things that will help us when we build out dice pools. And each ability also has questions kind of tied to it. But I almost think that's interesting. That's going to be something more interesting for me to fill out, like as we play through, because I think there's going to be opportunities for me to kind of like answer these questions as we go. And sorry, go ahead. And I'm seeing these really interesting. I want to know, is this like aesthetics or is this an actual function of play? Because I just came from like looking at Blades in the Dark character sheets. So I see that there's these slash marks in the diamonds and in the squares for abilities. Those are directly tied to the gameplay mechanics. So like as we each one, as we either succeed at roles, as we establish relationships, as we so for the hindrances, for instance, we have these really cool these sort of D8 designs, these diamond designs. As we wager, we put our hindrances on the line, and we potentially we wager them. We put dice on the pool. If we succeed, we fill in those diamonds, and they become bonus dice for us to roll later. That's so cool. So it encourages you to be nice. It encourages you to really up the stakes and be like, my hindrances are coming into play here. Here's how this is a problem. And then for your abilities,
If you have...
For my abilities, I have already blocked out presence, hacking, and remedy.
Yes. So the number... So when you're using one of your abilities, you'll mark in the number of filled in dice next to that ability. So whenever you're using one of the three things that you have a dice marked into, you'll roll an X. You'll add an extra D6. And then with your loyalties, if you act out of alignment with your loyalties, you'll fill in this little D6 square next to the loyalty statement, which says that you cannot pull that ability to your favor until you act on it for no gain. So at any time, if you act on one of your loyalties, so if I act to do something messy, I can add a D6 to my dice pool, and we'll walk through the whole dice pool process in just a moment. But what would happen is if I do something messy, I get to add a D6 to my dice pool. If I consciously choose a course of action that is not the messy action, right? Like if I consciously, if I allow someone else to do the messy thing and get the blood on their hands, I have to fill in that box, and I can no longer rely on that knowledge of myself, that sort of core belief in my world, until I do a messy thing and do not get that extra dice for it.
I really love how they tie it all in. That's very interesting.
Honestly, the mechanical design of Space Between Stars is so freaking cool. Vid did such a good job. Like the way that like everything kind of ties back into dice, like different dice mechanics, and like the way they all kind of play off of each other. It is crunchy in a way that like actually just feels like every piece of it like pushes us to like pushes this.
It really matters.
Cool beat, and it's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Now,
I really got to play this proper after this.
I do. I truly like we're going to play through a little tiny scenario. Like, I don't think we're going to today because I want, for time's sake, I don't think we're going to build out like a full job and play through a job and a twist. But I do genuinely think I'm going to get some people together. I know the exact group of people that I think would chomp at the bit for this. So,
the last time I played something like this was with Beam Saber, and I just had so much fucking fun with that whole world. And this has given me a lot of that same feeling and pushing it even more, tying in the mechanics with the role play. And I love that shit.
It's good shit. It's really good shit. All right. So, like I said, we're going to play through a little bit of a scenario. There is like a really cool job building table and like really good beats about like how to build out a job that your characters go on. But for the sake of time, I think we're going to go with a slightly shorter one of like, I think what we will do is there are sort of getting to know your crew questions, which are going to be 3 more card-based prompts to set up who we've met as a major contact, how our last job went, and where we are. And then from there, I think you and I will just kind of set up an interesting scenario, kind of pick up in media res of like an interesting scenario, build out some dice pools, play some games. And so we'll just kind of set up like an interesting moment in the lives of these 2 characters, who I guess should also have names.
I'm excited.
And I realized I should give my character a name.
Oh, yeah, true. We got to name them. What are you calling them? Are we going through nicknames? What are their Christian names?
I'm going... My name is Brax Carbine Aldox.
It's a veteran if I ever heard one.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Brax's pronouns are he, his... My character's name is Brax Carbine Aldox. He, his pronouns. Carbine is his nickname, and he prefers it. And he says, my friends can call me Carbine. Most people call me Brax.
I think actually I have something to admit to you. Oh, shit. I just realized that even though for the loyalties, I got the first question, and as I was filling it out, for whatever reason, it scrolled me back up, and I was reading out the questions for the veteran, which is why I just realized there was so much overlap between our questions. And I was like, dang, yeah, I also have to say what I'm addicted to. That's interesting. And I just realized I'm like, oh, fuck.
You know what? It made for very interesting characters. Sometimes
I will take it. Yeah, my hindrances are supposed to be who has died due to your actions, which works. Yep. In our very what's it called, like, fuck, what's the word, optimistic to a fault. Yep. Greatest regret, fucking stole my family ship? Do you show pride in your possession? So that was the one question I got right.
Yeah. That feels good.
What do you do to get revenge? Oh gosh, I feel like if this is something that's like a total last resort for my character, because they desperately want to believe like everyone is on the same page as them. This is a good for everyone situation. Have hard time dealing with like other lived experiences. I would even say is like it kind of mimics the conversations we have nowadays with like recognizing privilege. Like there's no one answer for everybody. And then the question of how do you attempt to better society? I feel like we did touch on that a lot with the kind of like brute force optimism. So there we go.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. So yeah, let's build out a little bit of a scenario. I think the first question that I want to answer is I'm going to draw a card for how our last job went. Our options are poorly, strategically, loudly, or strangely. So our card is the Ace of Diamonds. Went loudly.
This feels correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I definitely see this kind of situation where it's like both my character and yours kind of at the end of a hallway, you have your right and your left option, and they both at the same time turn in the opposite direction, be like, that way.
It definitely was like, I get so much Han Solo, Princess Leia, like New Hope vibes of us, like that vibe of like Han Solo just running as pure chaos down a hallway with a rifle in his hand, of like this vibe of like at every step of the way it turned into what is the one option that we're going to take that is going to get more people mad at us and more and like turn this into a larger, messier fight.
Yep.
And I love that has just happened. So like it's that vibe of like floating away in a ship after all of this chaos has gone down.
For my character's name, with the strong-willed background, I want to name them Arjun. They, them pronouns. Perfect. All right.
I love this. I love that Arjun and Carbine both like just had this like absolutely chaotic thing, and now we're like on our way to meet someone, and it's just like I imagine the ship has taken damage, and like our outfits are burned up, and it's just like nothing looks good. Like nothing looks put together at this moment.
What a team.
All right. So we are currently, I'm drawing for our currently at, I've drawn the 10 of spades, which is the a planetary colony, Horizons. That gives me an idea of like what we were doing. And it might be helpful also to have our major contact, but the idea that we are after this loud aggressive thing, we are kind of like rushing off to this one colony. Do you think that we are wrapping up the job, or that we are going to just lay low for a while, or that we're meeting somebody new for a new job?
I think we're still arguing about which of those we want to do. I think that's part of it. Yep. We have kind of like came to the most neutral place we could think of, where perhaps like I think I have a contact, you think you have a contact, and we're like, let's lay low, let's plan our next room, let's get a job, and it's just back and forth until I think we find our major contact who sets us on the path we're supposed to be going.
I like the one detail that I want to add, especially as I draw this card, and I really love, like, this is a beat that I love that is a very good like kickoff moment for us. Is we're having this argument, and we both kind of throw in the idea of like, I've got a contact here, I've got a contact that can get us his job, really, because I've got a contact that's going to help us lay low for a while.
Exactly.
And we're arguing this, and I drew for Staria, who is an entertainer. I love the idea that like we're like in this bar, and like there is a lounge singer, and they come up, and like the lounge singer approaches us, and we both turn, and we're like, all right, cool, what? No, this is my contact.
It's my contact.
No,
I spotted her first.
This is my contact. This is the idea that we both had the same contact and neither of us had any idea.
I love that. That's excellent.
So okay, so that's where we're at. So now we basically kind of just we kind of play out our scenario. And the way that we do that is we have so Space Between Stars uses cycles where every player will be the active player. The active player starts their turn by establishing or expanding on a scene and sets a goal for what we want to accomplish. You can either start a new scene, which is establishing a scene, or continue from where the last player left off. The active player is going to choose to either start a thread, which is taking a story to a point where we establish a new character, group, location, event, or conflict, at which point we will each, you and I, like throw in some details about that. Or we can push forward, which is rolling on dice to resolve the sort of conflicts and the sort of scenarios and sort of achieve our goals and sort of like get to a point where we have accomplished a thing. So I will go ahead and take the first active player role because I do want to start a thread here.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in this. I think this is a great jumping off point.
Yeah, and I think that the thread that I want to build to. I want to build a conflict. So I'm going to create a thread. That thread is going to be a conflict, which has some extra sub rules. But for now, I'm just going to talk through the process of creating a conflict. You can bring up any of these elements without creating a thread, but the process of creating one is to create like a major element of the narrative and sort of like give us something to sort of build our story around. And this feels like the right opportunity to do that. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm creating a conflict. So the first thing I'm going to do is write out a name or title that identifies the thread. This is, I'm going to write, I think that the title that I'm labeling this is Consortium Security is looking for us. Like the conflict is that we're having this argument and we get to a point where I think that maybe we have stolen a thing or like we've destroyed a thing, like whatever the consequences of the last job that we were doing.
I think it's a lot of like, we need to lay low, and it's like, no, we need to get off this planet. And it's like, so we need money to get off this planet. And it's that back and forth of like, do we duck our heads or do we run for it while we know they're already looking for us? So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And the detail that I want to add, because what happens is I add like a short sentence or bullet point of like what the aspect of the thread is. I think that like the people, like the sort of security force that we pissed off has landed at like this tiny colony space dock, and there's a bunch of heavily armed thugs like marching towards us. And that is the detail. So after that, I can throw it over to you. You may choose not to add another like sentence to this to add another detail to this sort of deal, and then we'll flesh out what the conflict part looks like.
Right now, I'm trying to figure out if they know who they're looking for. Because I think that is what escalates it even more and can add some really interesting turns. It's like, do they have footage of us? Do they know what our faces look like? Yeah. And that would be a very serious issue for both of our characters, as you know, someone who probably already has an arrest warrant out for them as they've stolen the family ship, and the other one having some less than ideal ties. And there's plenty of people all across the galaxy who kind of like a Han Solo that would not be thrilled to see his face again.
I love that. Yeah. So what happens now that we fleshed out the conflict, we have the deal that there are security forces on planet, like walking through the streets, looking for us. The idea that they don't know who they're looking for yet is very, very compelling to me. And I think those things together. So what happens is we decide if this is an immediate, long-term, or an immediate threatening or long-term conflict. Each level represents how many times we must push forward that conflict to consider it over, and the degrees to which things can go right or wrong. Immediate conflicts require 1 roll, threatening conflicts require 2 rolls, and long-term conflicts require 3 rolls. I think this feels threatening. This feels like, because that idea, I think the fact that they don't know makes it more...
there's real stakes
Yeah.
at hand. They have a lot of motivation to keep it that way. And there's a lot of shit that could go wrong if their faces are blasted across, the intranet.
Yeah. So this is going to require 2 rolls. So what's going to happen is so we've kind of built out our scene, right? I think we're sitting with Steria, and maybe like one of the stage hands runs over to her and kind of like whispers in her ear, and she like kind of gestures with her fingers and brings us over some drinks and is like, you're gonna want to drink those quick because you need to get the hell off planet.
Oh geez. So and now we are rolling for the threat level. So how exactly do rolls factor in?
With that kind of wraps up where I am as the active player. So I throw it over to you. Do you want to introduce a new element to the scene, either a character, group, location, event, or another conflict, or would you like to push forward, which is when you pull together our skills, resources, and other players to try and overcome the conflict that's in front of us?
I think as Arjun throws back their drink as quickly as they can, and actually also reach over to Brax and throws back their drink as well.
I love the visual of like Brax is like calmly sipping this drink. You rip it out of his hands. He's like, I was enjoying that.
We gotta go. And instantly it's like looking to Steria and be like, do you have actually, question for you. Where do you think our ship is?
I think maximum drama, our ship is in the same starport as these like security forces. I think if we're going to get to our ship, it's going to have to be directly past the very people that are hunting us down.
So I think if the language is correct, like pushing the scenario forward, and I think we have our end goal. And I like the idea that like Steria somehow gets pulled along with us. Like she's about to go on for her next set. And the head of the bar like pokes his head backstage and is like, hurry up. We got 10 minutes before, next one goes live. So, and in that span of 10 minutes, like I am convincing her to help us get to our ship.
Mm-hmm. And so we are pushing. This feels like a good time to like push forward. I think it is. Mm-hmm. I think it is very much like we get word like the bartender kind of like starts to wave at us that there are people knocking on doors and they are like next door. We got to get out of here now or else things are going to get chaotic real quick.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we are going to build out our dice pools to determine how well we perform here. The way this is going to work, I'll walk you through it step by step. Vididia built a very lovely dice pool building workflow, which if you are building a thing with complex pools and stuff, I think this is a really essential thing. A shout out to the game designers. This is the most helpful thing. Okay, so I'll walk you through how to build your dice pool, and then I will build our difficulty pool. We'll roll those dice and determine which one of them has the higher outcome. So you're going to start with 1d6. You always roll a minimum of 1d6.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. You can add or change dice do you feel like you are playing towards one of your loyalties?
Playing towards one of my loyalties. Oh, definitely not. I'm saying I wanted to treat my ship like my family and attempting to better society. I'm currently an outlaw and can't get to the one piece of safe harbor that I have out here in space. All right. So I think no.
And I don't think you're playing specifically against any of your loyalties either. So I don't think they're going to lock any of them. Oh, I'm going to have to make some rolls after this because I think I know what Brax is going to do here, and it's not great. Oh, we'll get to that when we get to it. But I think that do you have look at your 3 abilities, and do you think any of those abilities would come in handy in this moment?
What previous occupation taught you to command a room? So that is the question tied with presence. And then accuracy. What are you able to pinpoint exactly when you're under stress? Those are my 2 abilities checked off for strong-willed. I don't think I'm looking to command a room right now.
Okay.
Perhaps, or you're saying they're in the bar.
I think they're like around the corner. They're like next door. Like they're like knocking on doors and like poking around. But like I think I would actually probably feel like presence fits pretty well here because like the bar is working with you to kind of get you the hell out of here.
Something I'm going to throw out. Feel free to shut it down or work with it, whatever you want to do. We're in the dressing room with with her name Steria, and I'm eyeing, you know, the different costume work, the false eyelashes, all of the wigs around me, and if they're in the bar, they don't know what we look like yet. I might be the next act on stage with presence.
That's very good. That's very good. So what previous occupation taught you to command a room?
So my family with this ship, we are going from kind of like a traveling troupe. You know, my uncle's a storyteller, my aunt's a puppeteer. We kind of do these like, it's the space version of the county fair. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that so much. And the thing that I want to throw out is like you are getting like costumed up. And I think this is when Carbine finds this out and is like, what the hell are you doing? And like I think Arjun like tells that story of like my uncle was a puppeteer, you know, breaks down like the family history of all these things. And Carbine's like, oh my God, I'm with circus people. This is great.
I think if you still see the faded lettering on the outside of Arjun's ship as well, you can just barely make out the Fortuna family circus. Like just if you squint, definitely kind of tried to strip that off.
So I think that I love that. I love that so much. And I love Braggs finding this out at this moment and being like, okay, this is fine. I assumed that's fine. We'll okay. So, add an extra D6 for your presence. So you're going to roll 2D6 here. Let me continue to run through the, and we didn't flesh out any items, but you do have 2 items marked on your sheet.
I did. Okay.
You've got an occupational item and a contact book. If you feel like either of those can help you in this outcome, you can add those in here.
I don't know if I have I don't think I have items that would help me out with this.
All right, so you're going to roll 2d6. You can ask to bring in crew members if they accept to be brought in. We have a relationship with each other, if I remember correctly. But I also think that and this is going to bleed into what the next roll is going to be. I think Carbine is not going to help you because Carbine has his own plan.
Oh no, Carbine, please.
So
work with me. I think Arjun is going to take the stage, and I'm going to push it even further. And they're kind of doing this dramatic retelling of the 7 of spades, and this is a little bit to humor themselves. You know, they're in full drag. They got the wigs, the glitter, the spotlight on them. Stereo's probably in the corner with like on the piano, kind of like bullshitting as well.
Yeah, I love that. I adore that.
And it's fully distracting any kind of interrogation happening, any kind of questioning happening as these troops are coming through the room as well. So yeah,
I love
maybe that'll help Carbine with whatever he's about to get up to.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so I will roll our difficulty pool. I'm going to start with 1d8. I will bring in 1 additional d8 for any additional plot threads being tackled. We only have the 1 plot thread at the moment, so it's going to stick at 1d8. We don't have any filled diamonds on our grief tracker. So the other thing to track is we can choose to add, or rather you can choose to add up to 4 additional d8s to the difficulty pool. And the way that you do that is by tapping your hindrances. If you feel like either of your hindrances will tie in and will make your life more difficult, you can choose to add additional dice to the difficulty pool. And what happens then is if you still manage to succeed, after adding difficulty, you can take those d8s and use them as bonus dice in later actions.
So I don't think this is tied to the question, who has died due to your actions. I don't know if it ties into, I guess, I wonder if the biggest regret, I'm going to play this off and you tell me what you think about this. It's like one of their greatest regrets is the fact that they had to steal the family ship, even though it is the same thing that's also enabling them. And the fact that I think it ties in a little bit because they've almost handed over the ship to the consortium.
Okay, yeah, I like that. So you can feel free to add an additional D8. I will be rolling 2D8. So I'll roll 2D8, and so if you succeed on this, you will get to take that D8, mark it on your character sheet, and roll an extra D8 on a future roll.
Nice. And will you be rolling for me?
Yes, I will be rolling the difficulty pool if you would like to roll your player pool.
Okay. And for my player pool, I'm just rolling that singular
2D6. You brought in one of your abilities. Okay, I rolled an 8.
I rolled a 6.
Okay. So, on a player, skew the result on who has the highest die rolled. So what was the highest single dice that you rolled?
4.
Okay, so this is going to be so the way that this works is we compare which pool has the highest total, which my dice pool was higher. So so that means that this is a failure. This does not work. And we skew the result based on who has the highest single die rolled. Because I had rolled a 6, I rolled a 6 and a 2. That means that this turns into a no and. So this is not only that the thing doesn't work. I think what happens is they put on this performance, and I think what do I think? Do you have an idea for what goes wrong here? Something extra goes wrong here.
So I've definitely not told Brax what I'm about to go do. It's and he doesn't know that I'm actually about to get into the story of the Seven of Spades and this dramatic drag-like retelling. And this is something I'm offering you. Maybe it triggers something for him. Maybe it's like he's seeing how things are closing in on them. And he can't help but act.
And I want to throw in the other detail here to push this further. I think I'm not the only one that kind of like stirs something in. I'm not the only one that bothers. Yeah. I think there's like someone else here. Like there's like a gang. Like there's like three enforcer types that are like also very angry. Like I'm not the only one here with ties to the Seven of Spades. And the second you kind of start telling this story, I think it gets like you maybe get like partway into the performance, and just as the security forces like kind of like walk in the door, like somebody gets up and like shuts off or turns on, like gets up and angrily turns on the house lights and starts. And the other detail that the and here, I think that's a good representation of like why it doesn't work. And I think the and is maybe they call out like that we've washed in from off planet and have started talking about this, so that the security forces immediately hear, oh, the person on stage who is extremely like out in the open in a vulnerable spot just happened to come in from off planet.
Oh, goody. That's great.
And so it is now my turn to be the active player, and I have no hesitation for exactly what happens next.
Oh, boy.
Brax clocks a security officer in the jaw.
Of course he does.
I break one of those big glass steins, like one of those big glass steins, just bash it right over their head. And it's just like full on bar fight. Like I bash that. Steria and the other performers grab mic stands and like rush some people. The enforcers pull guns. The security forces pull guns, and there are guns blazing, and it is absolutely chaos.
I just imagine as Arjun has this very dramatic falsetto happening as they're talking the tale, sees Brax clock the guard and immediately is like, oh fuck. And then hikes up their dress and joins in.
Time to go. So all right, I'm gonna build my pool here. I start with 1d6.
Mhm.
I am absolutely playing towards one of my loyalties.
Yes, you are.
I am getting my hands dirty so no one else has to. If I can make it so that you don't have to bash a glass over someone's head, then I've done my job here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask if Arjun wants to join in here.
Yeah, they're gonna.
All right, so I'm gonna
I don't think they have a choice.
I'm gonna add a D8 here for a relationship.
Yeah, we're gonna tag team this.
Yep, absolutely tag teaming this. Let me check. Let me look at my abilities to see what my abilities here are. I have presence, I have hacking, and I have remedy. I don't think any of those necessarily fit here. Actually, my presence really does, especially because it's tied to a question: what effect do you have on others when they see you?
Oh, actually, that does play in. Yeah,
I have a very punchable face. I don't know why.
That'll do it.
I don't know why that's the detail that I picture, but I picture Brax as just like somebody that you kind of just want to throw one at, and like it kind of plays nicely because like he's real good at pissing people off, and like he just makes you want to just clock him in the jaw. Like he just has that kind of like naturally irritating energy that like feels like he has done something to slight you when he has, even if he has not, and he could put the effort into trying to convey that that's not the case, but he also just kind of loves that that's the case.
I think this is definitely a conversation Arjun and Brax have had. It's just like, if you just been less scary, that might work in our favor.
But I like scaring people. Like it's scaring people's what I like to do. Why would I want to do less of that?
God forbid we make friends. Perfect.
Well, that also ties nicely. Well, we'll get to that later because that's going to tie nicely into some hindrances. So I don't have any bonus dice. So right now I am rolling 3d6 and a d8.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you build our difficulty pool.
I do that with my hindrances.
So we start with 1d8.
Okay.
We don't have any additional plot threads, so you're going to roll 1d8, and I'm going to bring in. I've got a decent chunk of dice. I'm going to bring in an extra d8 and say this is because there are people here with criminal backgrounds. Like I am very specifically at risk of being recognized as somebody that has a very bad reputation among criminal circles.
So with my 1d8, I rolled a 4. What does that do for us?
So roll one more d8 and then add them together.
Okay.
And make sure to note the individual numbers of both dice.
4 into 7. So a total of 11.
All right. Great. I rolled a 14. So what that means is that I succeed at what we're trying to do, and I'm going to get to claim this d8 as a bonus dice for later.
Okay.
However, because your 7 was higher than any of the dice that I rolled, this becomes a yes. This becomes a yes, but.
Okay, so
something goes horribly wrong here.
Okay. So you go in to clock the first consortium guard you see. I've joined into the fray. This is a yes, but. So we are right now. We're aiming towards the door, and I think, and we know where the hangar is. So yes, we're going to fight our way through this room. We, duck under some chairs. I've thrown a bar stool or 7, and we've just like slipped out, like we're coated in oil out of the door. But the thing is now we have 5 guards actively chasing us.
Yeah.
We know where we're going, but everyone on this colony is seeing what's happening here.
100%. And so I think I want to call for, I know that we had set this originally as a threatening conflict, but I think I want to set this, I want to give us one more roll on this. because I do want to know how well we kind of get out of this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say, do you have a plan to get out, or do you want Brax to have a plan to get out?
Oh, I think Arjun is all out of plans after that performance. And I think Brax as well, like, asks them this, and they're like, so what's next? And he's like, I had another number, and that was it.
Okay. All right. And I think Brax, like, actually, I might even say that I don't even know if this is a roll so much as this is like a good kind of closing note. I think like Brax like sags his shoulders a little bit, and like, because I think this is like my loyalty hits on like such a strong kind of beat that this might be the closing note for our story, at least as a good cliffhanger. Is like,
yeah, I
think Brax like sags his shoulders, looks at you, like, is like, okay. And like, I think like, I'm going to say, I think Steria is like with us, because I think Brax,
for sure.
I think Brax like takes a pistol off of his belt, like kind of shoves it into Steria's chest and says, they're like, make sure the two of you get to the ship. Don't change the radio station. I will meet you. Here, I'm going to flip a card real quick, because I want to.
Yeah, where are we going?
I think I drew a diamond for the currently at table, so we are going to the to a pit stop. Actually, there is also, I think, a separate like location table, so I'm gonna oh, perfect. I have friends at a mining colony not far from here. It's like a one quick jump away. Get there, tell them that Carbine is on his way. I promise you I meet you, and I say with 70% certainty that I will be there alive.
Oh boy. And I can't imagine Arjun would want to meet more people who find Brax's present, like they would consider them friends. Like there's a little bit of mental calculation of like, you have friends? Since when do you have friends?
And I think the closing visual is like Steria kind of like shuffles off with Arjun, and the last thing that we see is Brax, like, again, like sagging his shoulders, rolling his shoulders a little bit, like, I really didn't want to have to do this today. And like the security forces and the enforcers, all like 8 of them, kind of like run out of the bar, and Brax,
oh my gosh,
hits the ground running and just does like a flying, diving kind of splash into all of them. And it's this is how it works. This is how I get us out of here. And like that, like mid freeze frame is where we leave our story for now.
Oh my gosh. That's great. That's a blast. Oh my gosh.
I love this game so much. Oh my god.
I can't believe we whipped that up within the hour. That's crazy. I'm already obsessed with Arjun. I'm obsessed with Steria. I want to know how many times Brax has done this. I have so many other questions. This is really, really cool.
And I love honestly, like I love GM-less storytelling games always, but like this one is really well done in how it like gives you that really firm structure and says like it at times can feel very tough to like get that ball rolling, but like the active player like pulling on threads and being like, okay, now we're going to resolve this. Actually, I'm going to add another detail. Like giving you those clear options is so well done. And like we were saying, like the tying all of these things into like narrative beats and all of the cool dice things that you can do. This game fucking rips.
I also really love this idea where it's like these scenarios are turning into no and yes, but and it's like there's a very clear communication within the group as well of like, this is what's going to happen next. And then you have that pride as a player of like detailing what it is. Cool. That is really fun. And then the fact that it's like you're rolling the dice, you're getting the totals, but then you're also paying attention to the individual the individual dice rolls. Like that is really interesting. I've never seen a game do that.
It's so the way that like I love that mechanic of like here's when you succeed and fail. And but also these individual dice numbers matter. And it also like the fact that what I love is also that the fact that the difficulty pool is all D8s makes it so interesting. It like adds that real potential of like, even if the player has like, 6 dice and is in their absolute element, there's that possibility of like, oh, the difficulty pool rolled an 8. There's literally just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And the other thing that I just really enjoyed is like starting on such a broad scale where we're talking about space whales, we're talking about, empires and rebellions in this far-fetched way. And then our story ended up being about the second to second, like the minutia details of us just getting out of a bar where we're getting like hunted down by troopers. That's amazing.
That feels like great sci-fi, right? Like
that feels like the best sci-fi.
The thing that I love about like a Star Wars is that you have this like galactic conflict, and then you follow dirtbag Han Solo and his friends. Like that energy is so good.
The fact that in the span of like an hour and a half, I know that Brax has a favorite radio channel. And I know that we have space whales that will affect, rent prices. And we know that we have contacts on colony to colony. Like there was so much world building.
Space circuses. We have space circuses.
Yeah. And it's just like all of this, it prompts you to just keep going and going and find out what the next thing is. And the hindrance is like something I absolutely love. The fact that it's like you're going against something you believe in. It feels so seamless going from dice roll to role play to setting up the next action.
Yeah.
You prefaced it saying that it was going to be quite crunchy, and I'm sure it was on your end as a person kind of like navigating us through it. But as a player, it felt really seamless.
Yeah, and like that's the really cool thing is like it really is tied to like you're building dice pools and you have all of these different kind of like labeled abilities, but like the materials that Vid has put together are so intuitive that like we were able to build those dice pools in the span of like 30 seconds and really kind of like walk through it. And then also it has that ability, that impact of like everything is tied to that, like everything like works together so well that like, you've already spent all this time kind of building and answering these questions. So it made it so intuitive that like
so
I knew
natural.
Exactly when to tap on each of these abilities. Cause I was like, oh, this is the scenario. This is absolutely me tapping on a hindrance and an ability. This game ripped. I'm so happy.
And because you're going back and forth of like, you're setting the difficulty, I'm saying what's going to happen next. I'm going to pull on this thread. There's no moment, there's no like feel bad moment if you feel a little bit stumped about where you want to take the story next, because you're working so well collaboratively in a way that you just don't get. I feel like in other TTRPGs, this is such whiplash for me because I just came from running my first ever, like GMing my first ever D&D game last night on the One More Multiverse platform. And then going to do this, I'm like, oh, this feels so much better.
That's what I love to hear. I'm so happy. I'm overjoyed. This is incredible. Thank you so much for coming and playing this with me. This was incredibly delightful.
This was an utter pleasure. And you said this game takes about 4 to 6 hours, right? That's what they say
with like a full group, it recommends about 2 to 4 players for about 4 to 6 hours. So this is like a perfect evening game. Like you're building scenes and jobs and the nice thing, and then like it just
So I feel like this would even work really well as doing your first 1 or 2 sessions kind of structured this way. And then like if you switch systems afterwards, I feel like it has done so much of your world building. Like if you want to carry it over into a campaign, like I would start like an Expanse TTRPG this way. I would not start with like the actual, official source material. Yeah.
Because you get that, you have that world. Like it rips. It's so good.
This is fantastic. What a pick. Thank you.
Thank you. I love picking games that I love picking games. It is one of my favorite things. And I picked a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So real quick before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sara Alfageeh, just, my full name. And you can always hit me up directly through the Multiverse Discord. That's where I'm primarily hanging out. I'm hosting games with our game calendar. You can spot me on Twitch at twitch.tv/playmultiverse, where I am a regular player and stream host with the Multiverse crew. And again, we are one more multiverse. We're currently in closed beta right now. Come check out what we're doing. And if anything interests you, we'd love to give you the tools to try it out yourselves.
Well, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for playing this with me. This was a delight. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Sara for coming onto the show. That game was so much fun. I had such a blast playing it and watching the story unfold and the world building and getting to play with the dice and watching this little fast-paced sci-fi story. It was exactly what I wanted, and I could not be happier with it. Be sure to pick up your own copy of Space Between Stars at veditiavoletti.itch.io or check the show notes for a link. Be sure to check out One More Multiverse at playmultiverse.com or follow them on Twitter at play_multiverse, and be sure to follow Sara on Twitter at Sara Alfageeh. Then while you're on Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast, join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord, head to our merch store at bit.ly/partyofonemerch, and if you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a nice iTunes review or a Podchaser review. Consider, what else? Telling a friend about the show, sending us some love on social media, or just flat out giving us money at patreon.com/JeffStormer or ko-fi.com/JeffStormer. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you want another podcast to check out now that you've listened to this one, go check out All My Fantasy Children. It is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano Saez and I take a listener-submitted prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday-ish at oneshotpodcast.com. The show is part of the One Shot Podcast Network. If you'd like to inquire about press coverage of Party of One, about coming on the show as a guest, or about advertising rates, I forgot a word there for a minute, you can email us at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And that's it. That's all we do here, so until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance, and as always, party on, everybody.